Hi, good day. My name is Aliana Jane Abalia, and for today's video, we will talk about Module 4. So, going back to institutional-based corrections. So, institutional-based corrections means that the individual is placed in a prison or jail, which means they are housed in a secure correctional facility. So, this is just a summary of Module 1. So, what is jail? So, jails are short-term holding facilities for the newly arrested, those awaiting trial or sentencing. So, what is prison? Prisons are staff of federal housing facilities that confine convicted felons with sentences typically longer than a year. And what is the difference between prison and jail? So, jail can be used to describe a place for those awaiting trial or held for a minor crimes, whereas prison describe a place for criminals convicted of serious crimes. So, jail is, katulad na siya mga longer than 3 years, and sa prison is 3 years and above na siya. So, katulad mga serious crimes is maput sa prison. So, ang sa jail pod is diara po itong mga gawait og trial sa mga, or diyan na sila mabutang if nara sila minors crime. So next is, so we have here two system-based approaches to corrections. So we have institutional corrections and community corrections. So first, we will talk about institutional corrections. So institutional correction definition of terms. So we have here Alexander Maconochie. So he is a Scottish naval officer, geographer, and penal reformer. He is also known as the father of parole. So, BJMP, or Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. So, government agency mandated by law of Republic Act 6975 to take operational and administrative control over all city, district, and municipal jails. So, kalagmitan kini kay makita natin sa itong mga cities. So, jail rin na siya nga mag-serve og mga minor crimes. So, Bureau of Corrections. So, has for its principal task the rehabilitation of national prisoners or those sentenced to serve a term of imprisonment of more than 3 years. So, community corrections. So, we are here in community corrections. The supervision of criminal offenders in the resident population as opposed to confining offenders in secure correctional facilities. So, the two main types of community corrections, so provisions and probations and parole. So, first we'll talk about probation. So, probation is a sanction that's been ordered by the court system. A person is put on this when they found guilty of committing a crime. So, probation is meron pa na siya kanang gibutang ay meron siyang kanang gipriso na Japon ka nga if you are found guilty of committing crime, then makuha na ka sa probation. So, probation lets a person stay in their community so long as they are being supervised by a probation officer. However, this is not an option for every single offense. Some offenders go to jail or prison without ever having the offer of probation on the table. So, dili po siya sa tanan dyan siya. So, mag-stay ra ka ni sa community, which is, merge mo kagipriso, pero sa community, Japon ka nag-stay. And what are the two types of probation? So, we have here serving time in jail and then being put on a probation after completing jail time. Often, the time is jail shortened because the offender will be on probation. So, number 2 is going on probation instead of going to jail. As long as probation is completed successfully, the offender can skip their jail time. So, what is parole? So, parole is the early conditional release of a convicted offenders from state prison after they have served part of a sentence. It allows inmates to return to the community to serve the remainder of their sentence under the supervision of parole officer. So, parole officer develop supervision, plan, and evaluate the parolee's progress. They will intervene if the parolee's behavior poses a threat to the community. Parolees must be careful not to break the laws, as parole violations can have serious consequences. So, if naa ka ning parole, so, you need to follow the law pod. Kay, pwede po siyang ma-break if ever if maka-break ka og usa ka law, then mo-face ka og serious consequences. So, individuals under parole have restricted rights. In exchange for the privilege of being released early from prison, the court expect parolees to follow a number of rules known as condition of parole. So, napod siya mga condition of parole. Kay, di ba, ang parole is makapaleser ang imuha nga day or week sa imuha nga diya sa prison. So, this can help to shorten sa kanang dali ra ka nga ma-release. So, community correction is also referred to as community supervision. So, what is the difference between institutional correction and community corrections? So, the difference is, community-based corrections are your either placed on parole or given probation. An institutional-based correction means that the individual is placed in a prison or jail, which mean they are housed in a secure correctional facilities. So, ang community-based corrections kay naaraan ang duha nga kanang place of parole ba or getang probation, and also sa institutional-based correction kay masulod jud ka sa jail or prison nga kaya jud na magbantay. And also ay naman po magbantay sa community correction pero dili jud katong mas serious nga kuan. So the Bureau of Correction of Republic Act 10575. This act shall be known the Bureau of Correction Act of 2013. Section 2, Declaration of Policy. It is the policy of the state to promote the general welfare and safeguard the basic rights of every prisoner incarcerated in or national penitentiary. So, custody. So, in criminal law, a person is in custody when, after being arrested or convicted of a crime, they are held in the jail or prison. Such persons are under state control until they are acquitted of their alleged crime or the conclusion of their prison sentence. So, security and control prisoners. So, prison security is crucial to maintaining staff and inmate safety in a correctional setting. So, security prison includes, but it is not limited to, managing restrictive housing population, classification and assessment, managing special population and security audits. So the prison division of NIC is seeking candidates for the security audit program. In order to be considered for the participation, each agency must submit a 3-member team. Team members should be in a supervisory role within the agency and in the position to affect change within the organization. So the work of security audit may best be described as a risk assessment, the function of which is to determine the likelihood of a significant security problems or vulnerability to injury, escape, disruption, or destruction of property due to inadequate policy, procedure, physical plant, and or performance. So risk assessment, hence security audit, is the process of determining the risk remaining after all the normal management safeguard has been applied, including clarity of policy, procedure, post orders, training, physical plant accommodation, and daily supervisory activities. So prison staffing analysis. So, capitalize on staff's strengths and abilities by using the right people in the right positions at the right times. So, need po siya nga na-adjure right people and also right position and right times. Kaya if ang imong ibutangan nga position is dili po siya right person, then magkakuan din siya. Then this is the essence of staffing analysis, and it relies on decision makers' competence to use their knowledge and understanding of basic staffing concept. Post and identification, shift reliefs factors, critical staffing levels, and more, and accurately assess staffing needs for new or existing facilities and operations. So the 32 hours program explores several methodologies for assessing current staffing levels and determining staffing requirements. By the end of the training, participants will be able to plan, modify, and implement staffing operations in their own facilities. So, care and treatment of prisoners. So, basic principles for the treatment of prisoners. So, we have here first is all prisoners shall be treated with the respect due to their inherent dignity and value as human being. So, tao raman dyan po ng mga prisoners. So, they will be treated like equal. Like, dili sa ingon nga nakasala sila. So, ang treatment nila is lain na. So, next is, there shall be no discrimination on the grounds of race, color, sex, language, religion, political and other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. So, there will be no discrimination. So, hinanglan nimo dawaton kung unsa ang ilahang kuan, mga skin color, unsa ilahang identity, like language po, sa ilang religion. So, respect. And it is, however, desirable to respect the religious beliefs and cultural precepts of the ground to which prisoners belong whenever local conditions so require. The responsibility of prison for the custody of prisoners and for the protection of society against crime shall be discharged in keeping with the state's other social objectives and its fundamental responsibility for promoting the well-being and development of all members of society. So, except for those limitations that are demonstrable necessitated by the fact of incarceration, all prisoners shall be retained the human rights and fundamental freedoms set out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And where the staff concerned is a party, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the Optical Protocol thereto, as well as such other rights are set out in other United Nations Covenant. All prisoners should have the right to take part in cultural activities and education aimed at full development of human responsibility. Effort addressed to be abolition of solitary confinement as a punishment or to the restriction of its use should be undertaken and encouraged. So, conditions shall be created enabling prisoners to undertake meaningful remunerated employment which will facilitate their reintegration into the country's labor market and permit them to contribute their own financial support and to that of their families. So, prisoners shall have access to health services available in the country without discrimination on the grounds of their legal situation. So, with the participation of health of the community and social institution, and with due regard of the interests of victims, favorable conditions shall be created for the reintegration of ex-prisoner into society under the best possible condition. So, the above principles shall be applied impartially. So, need siyang equal ang pag-apply. So, release of prisoner. Completing the full term of your sentence, you may be granted periods of temporary or permanent release in the recognition of good conduct in custody, notable by engaging in authorized structures, activities that are designed to reduce your likelihood of reoffending. If you are in prison and part of your sentence is remitted, you are, prior to completion of the full term of your sentence, released into the community without any further supervision or restriction. So, good conduct time allowance or GCTA. So, a sentence reduction provision afforded prisoners who show good behavior. It has been existence since 1906. Act 1533 provided for the diminution of sentences imposed upon prisoners in consideration of good conduct and diligence. So, Republic Act 10592 or the Good Conduct Time Allowance or GCTA law allows for the reduction of sentences of person deprived of liberty depending on how well they abide by rules and regulation inside any penal institution, rehabilitation or detention center, or any other local jail. So this law is relation of of Republic Act 7659 or death penalty law reportedly does not cover PDL who have been convicted in heinous crime enumerated in Republic Act 7659. This crime were considered punishable by death for being grievous, odious, and hateful offenses and which by the reason of their inherent or manifest wickedness, viciousness, atrocity, and perversity, and repugnant and outrageous of the common standards of norms of decency and morality. So, Prohibition Act subject to disciplinary actions. This disciplinary system in place is an essential component of security. It enables prison life to be organized and regulated by identifying behaviors which constitute infringements to the rules of communal life and by establishing sanction in case these rules are violated. So, a disciplinary action is a reprimand or corrective actions in response to employee misconduct, rule violation, or poor performance. Depending on the severity of the case, a disciplinary action can take different forms, including a verbal warning, or written warning. So, BJMP or RA 6975. So, what is RA 6975 all about? So, Republic Act number 6975 established the Philippine National Police or PNP under a reorganized Department of the Interior and Local Government. This law stated that PNP is supposed to have a maritime police unit to observe the police function of the Coast Guard and to provided with sea capabilities. It is hereby declared to be a policy of the state to promote peace and order, ensure public safety, and further strengthen local government capability aimed towards the effective delivery of the basic services to citizenry through the establishment of a highly efficient and component police force that is national scope and civilian in character. So towards this end, the state shall bolster a system of coordination and cooperation among the citizenry, local executives, and the integrated law enforcement and public safety agency created under this act. So, the police force shall be organized, trained, and equipped primarily for the performance of police function. Its national scope and civilian character shall be paramount. No element of the police force shall be military, nor shall position thereof occupied by active members of the armed forces of the Philippines. So, Republic Act 9263. So, an act providing of the professionalization of the Bureau of Fire Protection or BFP and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology or BJMP, amending certain provision of Republic Act number 6975 providing funds thereof and for other purposes. So, treatment of special needs of unusual offenders. So, most prisoners with special needs face discrimination in the criminal justice system on the basis of their birth, nationality, ethnicity, race, descent, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, disability, and health condition. So, emergency transfer of prisoner. All prisoners shall ensure prompt access to medical attention in urgent cases. Prisoners who require specialized treatment or surgery shall be transferred to specialized institution or to civil hospitals. So where a prison service has its own hospital facilities, they shall be adequately staffed and equipped to provide prisoners referred to them with the appropriate treatment and care. So every prisoner shall have the right and shall be given the ability and means to inform immediately his or her family or any other person designated as a contact person about of her imprisonment, about his or her transfer to another institution, and about any serious illness or injury. So, ang every prisoner kay muhakan po na sila nga pwede po nila sultian ang ilahang katungod which is ilang family ba nga nabalhin sila sa lain nga prison or naba sila'y sakit. So, the sharing of prisoner personal information shall be subject to domestic legislation. So, privileges of detainees and sentenced prisoners. So, prisoner privileges vary according to state but must allow a decent amount to abiding inmates. There are some legal rights they have as well, but in some cases, judges can refuse them. So, some of rights that cannot be revoked are visitation, food, medical care, and being allowed to practice their religion. So, the Regional Rehabilitation Centers for Youth. So, is a facility designed to provide intensive treatment in a resident setting for the rehabilitation of CICL whose sentences have been suspended. It serves as nurturing out-of-home placement for children in need of rehabilitation. The Child and Youth Welfare Code. So, Presidential Decree of 603, otherwise known as Child and Youth Welfare Code, and issued in December 1974, legally defines special categories of youth, including youthful offenders, and directs the Ministry in Social Services and Development, or MSSD, to provide comprehensive services to assist in youth development. So, even before this decree, the MSSD had implemented and integrated human resource development programs for youth, IHRDY, encompassing 3 program areas: economic self-sufficiency, community responsibilities, and youth with special needs. So, the death row. So, death row, also known as condemned row, is a place in a prison that houses inmates awaiting execution after being convicted of a capital crime and sentenced to death. So, this person nga kanang nabutang ani nga death row is katuna ng mga person nga gahulat og like death penalty. Or pwede po siya nga kanang mga person nga diyan na lang mga prisoner nga diyan na lang sa prisuhan gahulat sa ilahang kamatayon. The term is also used figuratively to describe the state of awaiting of execution, being on death row, even in the place where no special facility or separate unit for condemned inmates exists. So, the rule of writ of amparo. So, the petition for the writ of amparo is a remedy available to any person whose right to life, liberty, and security is violated or threatened with violation by an unlawful act or omission of public official or employee or of private individuals or entity. So, the writ of shall cover extralegal killings and enforce disappearance of or threats thereof. So, that's all. Thank you.